Now moving on to the White House, President Obama told Katie Couric that he plans to hold a health care reform summit with congressional leaders from both parties later this month. I'm joined by CBS News Chief White House correspondent Chip Reid and the Politico's Mike Allen to talk about this and the other political news. Chip Reid, first to you. I want to know what the White House expects out of this big confab they're going to have later this month.
Well, I think they'd love to see the president doing what he did 10 days ago in Baltimore with House Republicans and making himself look incredibly well-informed and eager to move forward in a bipartisan way and making Republicans look kind of shell-shocked, not able to respond. But this time it's going to be very different. That time he kind of caught them by surprise. The format worked to his advantage where they asked these kind of disembodied questions. If you were watching on the live feed, you didn't even see the questions. And basically the question was asked, and the football metaphor I like with this is that then the defense would leave the field and the president would run for a touchdown each time. This time the format's going to be very different, and they're going to have time to plan for something. And if anybody thinks that this is going to mean the president and congressional Republican leaders are going to get together and have a kumbaya session and reach a compromise on health care reform, think again. This is mostly about politics and him trying to show that in his opinion they have no ideas and don't want to move forward on anything.
Mike Allen, yeah, the healthcare debate has not lacked for talking. There's been lots of talking, and now we've got more talking. What's your sense of how this is going to play out, this bipartisan meeting?
Yeah, well, I think this is going to work for the president because he's checking a box that he should have checked 13 months ago, and that is get Republicans in a room, get C-SPAN in there finally, and say, so what would you do? Now, there's no indication that's going to change where he's going. And John, that's the fight we're going to hear in the next couple days. Our Republicans are going to say, we want to go back to square one. The president's going to say, no, we're still having the 2,700-page bill. We just want to know what of your ideas we can graft onto it.
So this is positioning them in some ways as demonstrating that they're the party of no, if in fact that's the way they behave.
Right, that's a good point. But then the other part of it that's maybe even more important for the president is to get rid of this sore that's there of people thinking that this is being done sneakily and in secret. People don't like the health care bill, but they even more don't like how it's going to be done. So it almost doesn't matter what the Republicans say or what he says. The fact that he's doing it will really help him out going into the November elections.
And Chip Reid, we know that all behind-the-scenes maneuvering has not been excised from this process. So while we have the public show later this month with both houses or at least leadership from both parties, what's happening behind the scenes to try and get legislation moving forward on health care, or are they all now just focused on this jobs bill?
Certainly they're focused on the jobs bill, but they are working behind the scenes too on health care reform. But I tell you, most of it is going on the way it's gone on all along, which is behind closed doors with the Democratic leaders up there trying to figure out how they can proceed and taking the temperature of the rank and file to see if they have the votes to move ahead, even with reconciliation, where you only need a majority of votes in the Senate. It's not clear that they're going to be able to get a big, massive package through, even with reconciliation. But if that's what it takes to get it through, it's clear that the president would like to move that way. Many Democratic leaders would. But it's not clear at all that the rank and file are ready to do that.
Your thoughts, Michael?
I think Chip is making a great point about that. The great secret is that Nancy Pelosi does not still have the votes that she did before. She keeps telling the Senate, go first, we're not going to walk the plank. And indeed, she's a little tired of that. But separately, several of the people who voted for it before have walked away. And she had a few in reserve, but they still could not pass what she talked about before. And that's why I think that this confab has a little bit the air of a show trial, because it's not going to change the legislation in any measurable way, and there's not going to do anything to improve the appetite of either side for it.
Chip, if it is a show trial and we get sort of a long, drawn-out conversation again about health care, isn't that what the president supposedly did wrong in the last several months? In other words, there's been this criticism that people, all they see is the back and forth on health care and don't see the White House doing anything about jobs and the economy. And so now he's basically invited another few months of clogging conversation about health care.
Yeah, well, I think Mike is right that this is likely to help the president by showing Republicans are the party of no and by getting out there in public and doing this. But it also runs the risk that people will just ultimately conclude, with help from Republicans, that the president is just about politics. And there's not really any intention to have this actually result in some kind of compromise, that it's all about politics. And if they can frame it that way, then it's going to look like a very hollow event and could hurt the president.
Well, that's a great point. And the other thing is the president needs to deliver. He and Democrats ran on getting Washington working again. And yet here again, we're in a situation where nothing big can get passed. And so that's why you have the president yesterday saying to Katie Couric, when she asked him if he wished that he'd waited on this, he said, no, jobs was always my first issue. It was my first issue last year. Well, you didn't mention that then.
Right. Mike Allen, Politico, thanks very much. Chip Reid from the White House, thank you.